Adobe Photoshop's generative fill. What is it and what is its impact on sports photography? Let's gear up and let's find out. Hey there you guys, I am Jerry Lai and welcome back to my sports photography channel. For those of you joining me for the very first time, I currently serve as the Director of Content and Photography at USA Today Sports, and I've been lucky enough to have been in the industry for nearly 2 decades. My goal for the channel is to help you become a better sports photographer. And if you think that I can help you out, hit that like button and subscribe. A couple of months ago, I published a video talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on sports photography. And during my time scripting and researching for that video, Adobe came out with a feature in Photoshop Beta called Generative Fill. I didn't speak much about it at the time because I felt like the topic warranted its own video. So that's what I wanted to touch on today. That said, before I really get into it, I need to make a very important disclaimer. And that is because the contents of this piece can be highly speculative. The thoughts contained within this video are mine and mine alone and do not reflect the opinions and positions of my employer. They're solely based on my experience as a photojournalist and photography manager, the direction that I feel the industry is headed, and my observations of how technology has impacted our business. Okay, so what exactly is generative fill? Well, in a nutshell, it's pure sorcery. With this new feature, users like you and I can expand backgrounds, add or remove objects, including entire people, or even change outfits and accessories on a subject, all in a few short button clicks and with virtually zero training. I mucked around with this for a few hours to try to discover a few use cases for sports photographers. And I quickly discovered how scarily good some of these functions are. For example, if I accidentally cut off a ball at the top of my frame, which is a pretty common occurrence, I can recover it. And what about those pesky refs that are always ruining our photos? Well, a few button clicks and see ya. But there are quite a few limitations as well. For example, you can't edit in any licensed logos or jerseys, nor can you add in any famous people or athletes, which of course makes sense. And you can't conjure up complex backgrounds without some really funky stuff happening. All that said, should you be using this feature? Let's circle back to my original question. What is its impact on sports photography? Well, if you're a working photojournalist or editorial photographer like myself, the answer is no effect at all. And the reason for that is because you won't be allowed to use this program's features. You see, as journalists, we are held to the highest levels of ethics in photography and content creation. Yes, even in sports. Because once you lose objectivity, you're burned, your reputation tarnished. And being caught manipulating images, and you will, is almost universally grounds for termination. But why exactly are journalists so stringent about not modifying the original content? Well, to quote New York Times photographer Michael Camber, once we start removing things from photos, then pretty much everything is on the table for negotiation. We can't be negotiating what is inside the frame. It has to be what was actually there when you took the photo. And continuing on, he does admit that sometimes we use images in a different way on personal or social media, but he did extrapolate and explain. We're the professionals. We have to maintain standards and ethics. We have to make sure that these photos are an accurate representation. So from a journalist perspective, Adobe Photoshop Generative Fill does indeed take things one step or more too far. So that begs the question, why would they even make this tool available? Because if it's out there, it's going to be too tempting to use, right? I mean, it's like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Well, to be fair, hardcore editorial and sports photojournalists are just a small subset of overall Photoshop users. And there's no such thing in the industry as a one-size-fits-all situation. So here's my hot take for the day. There will be some people who can and will use this feature in their sports photography. Let's pretend you work for a youth sports league or photographing a public running event like a 5K or 10K, and you're not there as a journalist. Instead, you're there as an action or event photographer selling prints. Since your goal here is to photograph as many athletes as possible and to sell as many prints as you can, you're going to want to make every single one look their very best. I can easily see someone deciding, hey, I got to move this ball over to make this look like a dramatic fingertip catch. Or let's remove this distracting element from the background. Again, no problem. So generative fill in this scenario is being used to remove perceived imperfections. Now, again, would I personally use Photoshop generative fill in this manner in my day-to-day work? Absolutely not. Full stop, no. But this is just one instance of someone who might find it acceptable to do so. Now, another situation where you might see Photoshop generative fill really start to proliferate is for the people who use sports photos but aren't necessarily the ones that create sports photos. Think about those people who work in communications, PR, marketing, or advertising. While each of these organizations may have their own ethics and standards when it comes to image manipulation, they're certainly not going to be as stringent as those found in journalism. Ultimately, the people in these fields exist to sell a narrative, sell a product, or to promote a show. So as a photographer, we're going to deliver these folks images as we see happen. But if it doesn't necessarily match up to the narrative that they're trying to tell, it's out of our hands. We don't have a say in stopping them from manipulating and publishing images in a different way. This sort of behavior has already happened in the past and will perhaps be even easier to do so going forward into the future because of these tools. And to that I say, if you don't like it, well, we're a little bit too late for that. Pandora's box has already been opened. So those are my very quick thoughts on Photoshop's new generative fill feature. As a creative individual who is always curious about how technology impacts our business, I do find this to be an absolutely fascinating feature. But again, would I ever use this in my professional day-to-day work? No, absolutely not. If it were ever discovered that I use this tool to manipulate my content, every single one of my published images would be questioned, and my days as a working photojournalist at my current company or any future company would be in serious question and doubt. But again, I do realize that there are two sides to every coin and that there are indeed people who will find Photoshop generative fill very useful for their work. And it wouldn't surprise me to see that they're already using these tools to streamline their workflow and reclaim hours and hours of time. Anyways, let me know in the comment section down below if you have ever played around with Photoshop's generative fill and what you think about it. Are you allowed to use it? Do you think it has a place in the future of sports photography? I'm always up for some lively debate. Thank you very much as always for watching. If you found this video interesting, as always, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like button and subscribed. And I cannot wait to see you all again next time. Bye.